And today, I don't know if we're going to get done today, but I think this shot is from the bridge sequence in Season 1. And so we're going to create that in Blender in 3D using some shaders and stuff like that. We'll make it look 2D hand-drawn is the effect that we're going for. But it's not shaded, so we're going to create all of the shaders, and it's also not rigged. So we're going to have to rig it. We're going to have to actually model this gun because I don't have this gun. We'll have to model the environment, but for the most part, the environment's pretty simple. It's just kind of like these, fences in the background. But so this is a new Blender project. I did install a new version of Blender, guys. I know it's it's been long in the waiting. I was 4.1 forever, but now we're on 4.3. So we're going to get into using a new version of Blender. That is mostly because I wanted to use this new plugin that I installed. Let's actually see where it's at. Lens Simulator, which I posted in my Discord. So if you guys aren't part of the Discord, make sure to join it. I have a link to that in the description, also here in the chat. So we have our character Jinx. Go ahead and import that. I believe this 3D model here is from the video game that some of you may have heard called Fortnite. Which means it has kind of like that Fortnite style to it. It doesn't have as much angular edges. It's kind of like rounded on her jawline and such. So we will do some 3D modeling, but again, I'll give credit where credit's due. This is literally just a rip from the game Fortnite. We're going to be doing more like modeling on top of the model that's already provided. I am not a character modeler by any means, but we will have to shade this from scratch because I do not have any materials for this guy, which is awesome because that's mostly what I work on is look dev and lighting and texturing. So that'll be interesting. I do think also we're probably going to have to worry about UV unwrapping. Actually, let's even see how screwed we are. Yes, we are. The shirt that we have, for instance, and the skin are all just one object, which will make that a little bit more challenging, as well as the glove and the hand there. So we're going to have to create our own separate data groups for everything as well in order for us to be able to shade stuff appropriately. With that being said, though, let's start at least creating separate data sheets. I had all of these here because it had a rig, but the rig was unusable, if I'm being completely honest. So we're just going to remove all the vertex groups that are already here. All right, how are we going to do this? What's the easiest way of doing this? We could just... let's try making its own separate object completely here. We'll do face, and then we'll do tries to quads. Oh, okay. Haha. I don't think it matters what you're selected on. I think it just does everything in your edit mode. So we need to separate the objects first. That's just how it has to happen. Now, we just need this shirt again. And hopefully if we could just alt select this stuff, we can at least get a little bit closer to what we want. All the way around the shirt. That looks good, guys. I think we successfully created a shirt. I'm going to select everything here now. Oh, no. I've got these guys, too. This will be a lot easier, though. See, her armbands here, we can make these. Let's make them their own object. Let's select this group, and we're going to call this armband. Okay, let's do this. So now we're going to select that. We're going to do deselect of the shirt, and then we're going to do deselect on the armbands, and this right here, let's do one alt click around that. Go into X-ray mode, so that way I can just deselect everything, and I'm just going to select this whole arm now, except for the fingers. We need the fingers to be deselected. But we're going to create, so that's an arm band. I should call that arm buckles, but this will be a glove. And I just need her fingers to not be, because she's got those iconic fingernail paints that we're going to be doing as well. I'm going to assign, but I'm going to deselect everything from here all the way down to here. We'll do that, and then we'll do deselect. Oh, whoops. Remove. We're basically doing one of these gloves at a time, or fingers at the time. All right, let's try that. So selecting the glove specifically, I will say I kind of want that, that, that. And then we hit assign to those. I think that's going to be good now. So now if we select those, that'll be correct. I think we have to do her other glove over here. Luckily, the entirety of the glove is basically good, but we're going to want... Let's do this. Let's select all of that, and then we're going to create glove, and then we'll do skin. With the skin, should we select this? Is Blender going to crash if I try to make this not quads? Let's go to face. Tries to quads. Crash? Question mark? Didn't do anything. 1 second. Yeah, it crashed. I think maybe the face has too many tries on it for it to try to do all at the same time. All right, let's make this its own selection and then go over here, and then we'll do save. I am just saving now between everything that I'm doing. Tries to quads. There we go. Fancy. Okay, so now the glove is going to basically be everything except for the fingers. So swap back to this face selection mode and basically deselect everything down here. Okay, cool. So that should be the glove. So we'll hit assign, and then let's select everything, and then we're gonna deselect the glove, and let's finish this area off where the fingers are connecting. We're gonna assign that to the skin. Okay, we're gonna do one thing at a time. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. Let's select the pants. We're going to go to face selection and then do tries to quads. Crash. Boom. We knew it was gonna happen. We just gotta have to separate everything one by one. Belt and the gun, that can all stay. Mostly doing this for my sanity, alright? Let's go ahead and save that and then just swap everything over. So tries to quads, that works. If we make it its own separate object, can we then delete it? We can. Alright, we'll keep the mesh of the eyebrows. I think that's fine. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's work on 3D modeling the gun. We're just going to grab all of our little separate Jinx pieces and then throw them in the Jinx collection. We'll call that prop. We're going to call this character. So inside of our prop, let's go ahead and start modeling our gun piece that we have here. So we're going to start out with probably the easiest piece, the cylinder. You guys knew it. How many gun barrels does this? It's a Gatling gun, right? So like, you know, you got to have... Oh, we'll do one at a time, okay? We'll just do one at a time. We've got this end of it here. We can extrude that. Probably just scale that out slightly here. Creating our own bevel, if you will. Probably something like that. Probably small enough so that way it actually fits inside of our thing. That is probably our goal here. So let's scale that in about there. And there we go. This guy now. We're going to go ahead and it's not that long, so probably do that. Just kind of mapping or following this base here. We just go ahead and duplicate this 3 times. I'm going to create a circle here. Let's do cursor to selected, and then we'll go ahead and create ourselves a circle. Circle is going to be... What does this front base look like here? I'm going to extrude this upwards, or actually downwards, but let's go ahead and select this whole edge here. We'll extrude it inwards slightly, and then create like a little bit of a ring. We'll just extrude downwards, and then this guy we will intersect with our guns. Our bottom of our guns. There's a lot of like buttons inside of Blender that I feel like nobody knows exist. I don't know they exist, and I've been using Blender for over 10 years. And I'm just going to duplicate this downwards on the Z-axis, and then if we select these 2 faces here, now we do the bridge thing. Let's do bridge faces, and that should get us a nice kind of like bottom edge to that gun piece there. I'm going to duplicate this down, Control F, and then grid fill. All right, I'm going to extrude this and scale it outwards now, and then we're just going to create this other piece here. And that is the base of this massive gun that she is holding. Basically, we need... it's like so weird that there's like this flat portion there. Would it be like a sphere? Are we doing half a sphere that's cut in half in 2 different areas? Oh my gosh. So we're going to Control J that, rotate that 90 negative degrees. And that way we can kind of piece this thing together one by one. I'm going to duplicate this whole thing here. We're going to scale this guy up. And probably select these 2 vertices up here. Go and scale them in a little bit. So let's see if we can move those up. Extrude, scale, move up, then fill. That's totally fine. And then now we have like this whole extra piece that we can extrude and scale inwards. And then we'll do the same thing here. So now we have this lip, probably that, and then we'll scale that up again. And we'll go ahead and extrude and scale it inwards. So that's that piece. I would imagine that we probably actually have to scale this completely in though. Yeah. Oh, she has like this thing. Okay, so this top edge here would just, ooh, turn off proportional editing. Kind of have that go inwards like so. I'm gonna edge loop the hell out of this thing though. So it'll be the bottom of the gun, the supports of the gun there. Scale this in, and then we're gonna go up a little bit. There we go. We're gonna create these kind of like rings here on the outside. And then honestly, if we rotating this on the 3D cursor, whatever we're doing here, we'll be able to just rotate it 120 degrees to the other barrel. Let's finish modeling this piece here first, and then we can then duplicate everything over accordingly. And now we got to create this piece, which I just don't know what this shape is. What is that? What shape is this? We can custom make it in top view and then just move it over. Let's go to view this and then set the normal faces. I want to be able to see face orientation. Beautiful. I knew there was going to be problems. Go to face selection on this, and we're just going to select all these faces. They're incorrectly faced. Flip. There we go. So we're just going to extrude that downwards. There we go. Great. There we go. I think we're creating these weird edges over there based off of the sizing of how everything is scaling. But you know what? It is what it is. We're going to turn off face orientation. That is looking good for me. I'm going to rotate this upwards now, and let's go ahead and attach this to our gun piece that we have here. Probably about right there. Let's go ahead and select this whole thing here. Since now we have this all lined up, I'm going to add in another edge loop, and we basically want to select this face now. Let's extrude this outwards. Probably scale it up to, let's scale it on median point though. So that way we kind of have this bottom edge selected, and then we'll extrude that. And then I'll do a few other like kind of like cylinders here that are going to be selected all the way to the back. Actually, let's set cursor to, there we go, cursor to selected. And then now we're going to add in a cylinder. Let's see, let's rotate that on 90 degrees. Going into edit mode, we're going to scale that down here. Probably should, actually real quick, before I do that, kind of like this center piece here, let's grab like this whole piece here and extrude that all the way to the back. There we go, I like that. And then this one, I'm going to add in a mirror against the body here. And we'll apply that here momentarily, but grab this face. I guess we're going to have 4 of these, aren't we? So let's grab that on the X, grab that on the Z. There we go. I'm just trying to place these correctly over here. Then connect that to the front, probably scaling that down. Let's add in a plane. Just move that over here and go to the front view of everything. Rotate that 90 degrees. I'm going to delete everything here, and I'm going to use a mirror. And let's do that. Let's apply that, fill that in. Okay, now we take this whole thing, we extrude it, we scale it in. We take this whole thing, and then we extrude that backwards. And there we go. That looks great, right? Great. Subdivide surface, that crap. Let's just add some edge loops in here to make that fall off a little bit better. And then we're going to have to fix some normals issues here because we're having some normals. Some normals are having some issues. Trying to figure out what the inside of this would look like. Scale that in. And then we'll do the, what did you say it was? Control F? And then grid? Hell yeah. Guys, I watched, have you guys seen the movie Red 1 yet? Not that it's like, it's a requirement to watch that movie, but I watched that yesterday. It's the Dwayne Johnson with, you know, Chris Evans and all of them film. I think the movie was exactly what I thought it was going to be. So, you know, it can't be disappointing if a movie is exactly what you thought it was going to be. I don't think it should have warranted being disappointing either. I think it's just a fun kind of like CG fest film, which, you know, was exactly what I was hoping that it would be. So you can't be disappointed if it's exactly what you wanted it to be. This handle's supposed to go back. Let's do this. And then let's do this. Control F that. Grid fill. Select the outside edge, which I guess we can't do. We're going to first do it this way. There we go. Extrude that to be pretty dang big. And take that all the way back here. Control F that. Grid fill it. Control F that. Grid fill that. Wonderful. I'm going to take this whole thing now. And we'll just align that here. I'm going to use a mirror. And we'll mirror this around, again, our gun. It's just the easiest way for us to kind of get everything to line up perfectly. And that's going to give us those bolts on the outside edge there. Let's create this back kind of trigger functionality on the gun. Okay, that's not terrible. That works nicely. I don't know where the trigger's supposed to be on this. We could do this by just making our own, I suppose. Overall, that's not bad for the mechanism. Let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to create the front of this strap that kind of goes around her shirt or shoulder. How do we want to do that? Probably with a cube. We like cubes. There you go. Now you got yourself a little connector on the front. Okay, so that's on the back there. We'll probably actually just duplicate this. We don't need to make a whole new one. Since we're going to be moving this around and scaling it and all that stuff, let's go ahead and create a cube empty. This is empty. That's going to be our placement of our center of mass. We'll select everything we currently have, and then we'll just parent it. Now we've got our character in here, and all we have to do is rotate this around. Now, her gun is going to be on this side of her, scaled down slightly. Probably something like so. Then we'll have to make a strap for this and everything as well, but this will allow us to roughly get everything positioned correctly. Go ahead and save that. We're going to need to create a rig for our character, okay? Now, I'm not a huge rigging person, so this will be fun. We're gonna do this manually, because why would we ever use any kind of add-on to do this? I don't know, you know, like I have an add-on that automatically does all this stuff, but why would I do that when, you know, you could have the fun of doing this manually? You know what I'm saying? Now, if you go to your data settings for your bone, we're going to make our viewport display in front, so that way we can see what we're doing, because our bone is now inside of our character, as we can see from the different angles, but we can see it at all times. And now all we have to do is start to rig our character. I'm going to just center this a little bit better, and then we're going to extrude that upwards. Sometimes it could be very useful to create a separate 3D viewport that is on like its side or something like that, so that way you can kind of see where your bones are actually in 3D space, because we're going to want this to be kind of centered, you know. Okay, and then that will be the head, which we don't need anything crazy for. The hair is going to be Interesting. Let's add some bones on that. I was gonna not, but now I'm going to. Okay? I was going to not, but now I'm going to. Whoops, not B-bone. Let's swap that to sticks. There we go. I'm gonna select our models that we have here. I'm gonna do a couple things before we start to merge everything together, because I want everything to be part of the same object. We're going to create separate materials for our entire thing. So we're going to hit new for the new material. I'll do this as skin. And then I'm going to create a new material for pants. And then I'm going to create a new material for gloves, shirt, boots, hair. And I'm sure we'll get more into the eyes and all that crap later. But for right now, the only thing we really cared about was this. So let's do shirt and skin. And then we'll go into edit mode here. And then by selecting everything that is we'll select everything and then we'll deselect. And then we'll go over into our... Whoops, actually we probably should do that again, but in vertice mode. Sorry guys. Probably actually don't have enough. We need these vertices here selected. Oh no, wait. We'll select everything as our skin, hit assign. And then for our shirt, let's go to our data here and we'll do select. I know this is correct. Armbands, select, shirt, select. Which actually we'll probably want to add a new material in here for the gloves. So we'll go back to our data here and then we'll do shirt, select. So this is our entire shirt that we have selected here, and then we'll go ahead and apply this, hit assign. And then with our gloves selected, we're going to want to select specifically our gloves. So we'll do select. The armband was actually all part of it. It's fine. Go back over to our material and then hit assign. Wonderful. Okay. It's kind of all we really needed to do. I'm going to select everything here and then we're going to join them together. Now with this girl selected, let's go ahead and parent her to the bones with automatic weights. Yes, it worked. Maybe, I don't know. Let's actually check this. Okay, this isn't the worst thing in the world. I can fix this. That's fixable. We can select our character here and we'll go into weight paint mode now. And, we may need to name our bones, which we can do. We can do that. Okay, great. So now, if we go into our thing, let's go to weight paints now. And then if we go to our data selection, we should be able to see all of our vertex groups. These are all based off of the names of our bones. We have a bunch of random-ass bone names in here. And that's not going to really help us because we don't know what bone 30 is. Do we? Do you know what bone 30 is? I don't. Like, we have all these random bones. Probably could go through and name all this stuff, but you can see how this is like lifted slightly here. This is where we're going to want to go in and subtract the rest of our stuff. So we'll go to our tools here and then hit subtract. So we're just going to go ahead and paint this bad boy out. We only need hair to be affected by hair, right? Yeah. Yeah, we're just going to have to go through all these random bones and then just make sure that we're painting out this holster. Okay, so now the gun is correct. Perfect. We're missing, you know what we're missing is, it's like some random ass little things down there that are not flying with it. I'm going to kind of select everything here and then rotate that around. We're just trying to create this pose here. The outline, the silhouette anyways. Which we'll grab our gun here in a second and then place that on this. Okay, so there she is in her glorious pose. Make this 20-ish frames long. Let's do that. Kind of just blocking out a few of these poses. Which we can also right-click these and then we can set the interpolation here to be constant. Yeah, something like that. How does that feel, guys? Just for like the main keyframes. Does her foot slide a little too much? Or maybe on this middle keyframe, it should, like this keyframe here. Where's this at? Let's go to this centerpiece here. And then she's just like, lifts this in the air. And it's just like, wham! Like, you know, where's my gun at? Grab that guy. And then do selection to cursor. Massive gun. Way too big of a gun. Kind of delete that keyframe. Let's see. We want this to be the gun size. Starting keyframe around here. And then back there. Something like that. Kind of leaned up on her leg. Like she's propping it up, you know. Set that to constant. Let's just see what that looks like. Those are kind of like the main poses there. And then we can do all the in-betweening and stuff like that to make it really smooth. But, you know, kind of just mostly getting those main poses in there. Then her hair flicks back. That's awesome. I like that. You know what? Before we end today, let's finish the environment for this thing as far as like modeling is concerned. So that way then next week we're going to go in and it's just mostly going to be shading and lighting and finishing up animation. So let's do that. This is all just like very roughly layout blocking. I am shamelessly just ripping off this photo here. Just kind of creating these shapes on this fence. Okay, so that's one fence piece. Let's rotate that. Where's that fence? There it is. So we'll prop that up, and this is going to be like roughly there. Let's delete the keyframe. We want it to be absolute widest away from off the camera. There we go. That's a very tall fence. So we're going to take the 3D cursor here, and then we're going to scale on the origin of the fence, or scale on the 3D cursor. Roughly that height. She doesn't need to stand so far away from it either. We can make the ground less far away. It looks good to me. Now, let's take this with an array. I'm actually going to duplicate this. There we go. Use an array on the opposite side. There we go. Turn off auto keyframing because that's going to drive me crazy. So there we go. That is going to be kind of what we're seeing. Just to make this a little bit easier, I like to turn on the black viewport display thing. That makes it a little bit easier to see. Probably there for the edge. And then, of course, what we can also do is set up a cursor on the ground here. One of the important things I've noticed with the Arcane look is that there is no straight lines. So adding in cubes and stuff like this, while on some other renders we can just easily add in some detail, I don't think it's going to work for this because it'll just feel too straight and too consistent. So I'm going to subdivide this a bunch of times, and I'm going to Control A and then apply scale. Now in our modifiers, let's use a displacement modifier, and we'll hit new for the texture. And this texture, we're going to swap it from image or movie to clouds. We'll just change the size to be quite a bit smaller. Perfect. That's all great and dandy. Now we just need to change the strength of this to be 0.1 or something. And that's going to create kind of this small edge down there. So if we do another subdivide surface after everything, we're going to get this uneven, do shade smooth. We're going to get this uneven kind of drawn line on the ground there. That way it doesn't look like a straight line. I think that's going to be our trick to a lot of our organic line stuff, is just not to make it feel too straight. And then, yeah, I mean, we've got some other stuff, you've got this debris in here that's already there. So let's go ahead and scale that down. We can just create our own wood chunk real quick. Whoops. We're kind of just building this out. Now there is a dude on this part of the frame. I don't think we're going to do that. This gun is pretty heavy, and we need to sell the fact that it is pretty heavy. So we're probably going to go into here first, and then I'm just going to select everything. And then we'll change the interpolation mode now to Bezier. This will allow us to see everything kind of in that smooth motion. The reason why we did stuff in hero poses first was so that way we could hit those positions that we wanted without having to, be too much concerned. I think we're going to want her to hold her arms up here for a moment before she starts to pull them back. So I do like that. And then this is where, probably grabbing both these bones, we can just grab this last bit, and we're just going to have that swing. Probably, let's have it rest here after a few frames, but I do want it to snap back a little bit too far and then reset. And then let's smooth out some of this, like, right, you know, like I think it kind of works, but we probably want to hit more of those snappy positions. She's going to lift up her leg a little bit more, maybe. I like that. Again, just kind of like duplicate this, but then maybe actually have this go back a little bit further, and then it's just more so like we're hitting that extra wiggle bone. It's going a little far for my taste, but you know, let's just clean that up. I love how the camera is still doing its jitter monkey. Let's stop that. Let's change the interpolation mode here to Bezier curve. That's feeling okay. I don't like how her hair kind of like snaps back. I do think that it kind of should have maybe, okay, well, we'll see if this is too much. I want the silhouette to be very clear. It's a little much. Just gonna smooth this out a little bit. And also want, when she stands up, I have it pretty subtle right now. I want from like right here. Can we have her foot a little bit further back? Let's put a cursor down. This is where like inverse kinematics is really nice, because I could just like lift the whole rig. Feels a little too rigid. Gotta smooth that out where it doesn't feel like, because right now everything is kind of just like revolving around. The weight isn't shifting, and we need that weight to shift a little bit better. I feel like her lips or her hips just kind of like lock into place at this point. So let's just lock this foot down like the front of the bone there, and then kind of position this to have her leg reposition a little bit. So rotate that down. Just rotate this a little bit more like this. Kind of in here. I do like that quite a bit better, yeah. That is very much more accentuated. And then as far as the arms go, you're right, we could probably try going a little bit higher. Oh, that's feeling good. So we got our gun prop. And you know what? I like your idea, Hasselhoff. I really like your idea. Let's constrain it to the left arm here rather than keyframing it, which is a very smart idea. We want it to be on, let's put it on this bone. This is bone 24. We're going to give you a proper name, sir. Mr. Left Hand over here. And then for this guy over here, we're going to have it always point towards right hand, okay? Just by changing those bone names. And then inside of our empty, let's go ahead and add in a constraint to child of the rig and left hand. And we'll do set inverse kinematics because we're already kind of in the right realm of where we want it to be. And then we'll do track 2. First, let's set this gun up. We'll do track 2, select your armature again, and then select the right hand. That's what we want. And it is not correct. Although, it's funny because it is kind of correct, but it's not correct. Probably if I play this back, yeah, it's like, it is correct. It's just the position of the gun with inside of the gun with inside the gun. And let's do this, actually. I'm going to duplicate my empty here, and I'm going to select the other empty. So we've got the duplicated empty. If I move around it, it does not include the gun. So let's go ahead and then delete the oopsies. We don't want to delete the constraints for that. But then our other empty, we're going to take this, and then we are going to delete our constraints that we created here. And then let's go back to our keyframing here. This empty, if we go ahead and select the other empty, like so press Shift Select, we'll do Control P, Object, Keep Transform. This will allow us to move the one empty however we want, this guy right here, whereas this one is always going to be parenting to the hands and pointing the correct direction. If we then select inside of our outliner and make this selectable, I want to take this dude, let's call this pointer empty. Let's make you non-selectable. And honestly, we don't need to be visible either. We don't need to see this guy. Doesn't matter if you deselect render or not, because you're not going to be able to do it anyways. So now, this is basically going to act like a bone, and we can actually animate it to be wherever we want. Let's go ahead and disable the gun real quick. Let's get that movement to happen. I'm not actually animating the shoulders at all right now, so this is a good time to animate the shoulders. So we will set up keyframes here. Let's go ahead and set these to be a little bit more relaxed at first. This is fine to be stuck out. I'm going to set up a... Due to setting only insert needed, 4 keyframes have been inserted. Probably at this point have the shoulders kind of lift upwards. And then that's going to go up. I think that we could probably then set some more keyframes here. And then when this goes back down, we can actually have these like kind of almost snap backwards under the weight and then bounce backwards slightly. That's definitely loosening up her a little bit. Also with her hair, I think the thing that bothers me is it happens a little too quick. Let's just grab her hair out here, and then it kind of like kicks back at that point. Let's now kind of keyframe some of this to go down a little bit. Yeah, let's see what it looks like with the gun now. And fix it. Really, her hand needs to be animated to like be holding the gun as well, because currently it is not. Looks really nice. With the hair, you could move the one in the front. Yeah, I guess it needs to move a little bit more at the beginning of the thing, because it's not moving all that much. It's kind of just like sitting there. Just grab that and bend it a little bit more. Like pauses here. It's like it needs a little bit more exaggerated movement, I think. So when it hits this spot. So if we go to here and then let's take this number of this hair and just grab it a little bit further. Now I kind of need the hands to always be gripping the thing appropriately. So this is where things are going to get a little complicated, because we need this to be positioned more correctly. Let's see. Let's rotate it like this. Just how she would actually be holding it. And then with the hands, we can then actually have her grabbing it. That works really nice. Probably should fix this though. So let's do that. How is the trigger mechanism working on this thing? We're going to rotate everything based around this bone here. So let's swap this over to the 3D cursor. And then let's just fix certain elements of this. So we want that. Because I need to rotate this hand, but I don't want to completely change everything. I just can't adjust that one bone is basically what it comes down to. So this is our object that we want to bake, for instance, because this is the one with all the constraints on it. So then object, animation, bake action, bake object transfer. Let's do bake action. And we'll do visual keying, clear the constraints, overwrite the current action. Sure. Let's do that. Let's see what that looks like. Beautiful. So that is everything that we could have hoped and desired it would be. So now we can adjust our hand. Thank you, Hasselhoff. Beautiful. Clear constraints should do the trick. Yep. Okay, so let's not rotate this around the 3D cursor, because that's going to give us more headache. Let's set our wrist position to be correct on this guy. Our hand still snaps through. We got to fix that. Press N and then turn into IK. I could do that. That removes all the fun. I think it's actually pretty easy. I mean, I've done it before. Usually I just look it up. Auto IK, axis, effect only. Is it auto IK? Do we want that? Oh my god. Why do you have to make my life easier, Tarek? Auto IK, I think you can do it by like saying how many bones you want the auto IK up to though. Get this a little bit cleaner here for the arm. Now that we've got IK set up, it's going to be a billion times easier. So bendy bones is this cool thing that they have in Blender, and they've had it for a bit now. I've not used it, but what it allows you to do is kind of have a little bit more of that jiggle motion automatically. Let's see if I can find it inside of the settings here. Yeah, bendy bones. Is it on a per bone basis? Do I have to do this on a per bone basis? How does that work? Like if I wanted her shoulders to be bendy bony? Oh, you just turn it up? Okay. Whoa. Honestly, that's pretty sweet. Okay, let's just add on to one. I feel like that's cheating. Is this not cheating, guys? Is this cheating? It's like adding free jiggle into your shot. Yeah, let's turn these bad boys down. So what it does is it adds more bones into the one bone. Forget how I did this, where it's parented to the head. You can see it right here. Relative parenting. Can I remove that? Inherit rotation? I don't want to inherit the rotation. That was the problem. Inherit the rotation. There we go. That's fine. And now let's select all of this hair and delete everything. Okay, so let's start out with these two pieces of the hair here. So from the camera perspective, starting into this angle, let's rotate this here. And we're just going to work through this systematically. We need to probably name those bones. Let's do this. Hair 1, hair 2. To make sure that we're not adjusting, let's select her body here, go to the weight paint, and then select the hairs. So under our data, find hair 1. Booyah. And then we'll have to make sure under tools, we are using the subtract. Just kind of sticking her hair back up here, we're only going to want to control the back of her hair, not the entire head. So back to object mode. And yeah, so like her hair can like snap like that. So anyways, boom. And then just kind of like rotating inwards here and then back outwards. Is that what we're feeling? Yeah, so it's like a flail motion. That way it's a little bit more reactive than happening at the same time. And then her hair, let's just have this a little bit more kind of like tail between the legs type thing. As if the motion that she was doing with beforehand kind of like lines up with this. Let's grab this dude. Let's just, she snaps it here and then set a keyframe. Then by the end here, we're going to just rotate that on the Z-axis like a crap ton of times. Might be an easier way of doing this. I don't know. Can we disable parent for a moment? I want to see what it looks like without the parent. So that's the pointer empty. Let's just... Okay, so it is rotating. That's good to know. It might be rotating a little fast. So we can always grab that and then move that down. And then let's turn back on our pointer empty for our thingamajig. So your arch position here is going to be a little bit more like right here, even more so. So let's just like step that up. Just trying to like stomp her leg a little bit more. It's all just part of it, you know, like it's got to feel more like a snap motion. We have a little jitter going on here, I think. Might need to smooth this out slightly. I don't know. The wrist is freaking out. Let's try deleting these inner keyframes. Let's delete these keyframes to the inner ones. Unfortunately, the auto IK works really well, but it also creates like a bit of a jitterness to it. And you have to be kind of careful. Let's fix some of our set design here. So notice that this is floating a little bit, which should not be floating. So let's not do that. Perfect. And then probably do the same thing over here on this guy. Let's just fix some of these floating lines. Might even actually just add another edge loop because we don't want it to be that big. Just extrude that downwards and voila. You don't need to have any more than that. Cool. Okay, great. Now that is animation. Let's jump into adding in some smoke into this shot. We're going to do quite a bit of the sim stuff here. One of the things to note is how this muzzle flash is looking. Let's see, how do we want to do this? First things first is probably getting the base textures down and then just kind of going from there. I'm going to hide this for right now. I'm going to hide all of our, well, let's do this. Alt-H, and then let's just go over here to our bones and just disable them. And then we'll also do that for extras. We don't need the extras. Mostly just focused on our character right now. For the sake of this test, let's go ahead and add in, let's create a UV sphere. Put that on the edge of our gun here. And inside of here, let's create, if you want stylized, you would use Eevee. Yeah, I have this, it will be stylized, obviously, because we're going for that Arcane look. I'm going to create one called Lighting right now. A collection called, wow. What is going on right here? Lighting. I kept like putting caps. I was like, I'm not. And then we'll do indirect only. Select our UV sphere, and then we'll throw that into there. We'll be replacing this later with a card that we're going to create, but I just want to do this for our own purposes. So let's just do muzzle. Do I have to use cycles for this? Yes, I do. And then we'll go of kind of like that yellowish tint. So that way the shadows are kind of like that bluish tint, but then the muzzle flash is kind of going to be more of this rosy magenta look. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and save that. Now, you can do this inside of After Effects. I'm going to be using Nuke. We're going to paint our muzzle flashes from scratch. We'll see how this goes. Let's first start by setting our settings. We'll use 24 frames per second. Let's also do this as HD 1920 by 1080. And then I'm going to probably turn off our render view over here. Minimize that. And then let's open up our reference photo just so that way we can kind of see what we're doing. I'm going to first create a constant, which is just basically a solid inside of After Effects. And then we're going to do a roto paint node. And just as like a test, where the first frame we're going to do is we're just going to kind of like match this. Just going to kind of hand paint it. Trying to get like the general shape down. We're just going to be using a white paintbrush right now. Let's go ahead and set this frame range. Let's see, how long do we really need this to be? It goes from like frame, see, when she starts to shoot is going to be here. So frame 18 to 25. So what's that? 5 plus 2, which is 7. I can do math. So we're just going to set our frame range here from 1 to 7. Kind of just get the rough shape of this down. So just like, you know, paint that out. I probably don't want my brush to be quite as big for this, but let's see, let's try this out. I think a lot of the imperfections that I'm going to have are going to be redeemable because we're going to be blasting this out with an emission shader. Let's Q out of that. All right, as muzzle flash, that's not terrible. What is the V for the vector? Yeah, let's do a V. So much easier doing this, I'm not gonna lie. So these are set to all frames. I'm actually just going to set it to single frame on these Bezier curves inside of this roto paint. So that way when we go to our next frame, it is not using that. And I'm just going to kind of imagine, oopsies, press Q. I'm going to kind of just imagine what the next frame would look like. So if we do that and that, kind of just like have the offshoot a little bit for these muzzle flash locations. I don't know if this is going to work, but now if we select all the all frames and then if we set that to a single frame, that should work. Okay, great. Let's see how bad this looks in context with everything else. So inside of Nuke now, all I'm going to do is basically just create a write node. I'm going to select today's date. We'll use this as an asset, I think. No, it's not an asset. Where would a good spot be for this? Let's set it to resources. Create a new one. Call this muzzle 01. And I'm going to save this with some frames. And again, you guys can use the After Effects or you can use Nuke for this, honestly, for this method. We'll just save these as JPEG files. I think works totally fine because we're just creating a black and white image. Matte painting is totally cool as well. Next up, we'll just disable that completely. Honestly, we could probably just use this black constraint instead of using our reference image that we were using. Undisable that. I'm also going to save this project file, so if you guys want to join the Patreon, you do get access to all these. Okay, great. I'm going to create directory and render these 7 frames. We only need the 7 frames. Back inside of Blender now, let's go ahead and delete this sphere that we created. We're going to import that video that we just created. So if you do import image as planes, which I guess we need to enable on this new version of Blender, and it's not already enabled. I don't know why. That's so weird. Background mesh plane. I wonder if they changed it to mesh plane. I don't know. Let's just create a new plane. It doesn't really matter. Just scale that out slightly. We can always adjust this here in a moment, but really we're just going to go ahead and create a new material. Call this muzzle. And inside of our window here, I'll just swap this over here to shader editor. And for right now, let's just delete our principal BSDF. And then we're going to search for an image sequence. Go back to our streams, and then we'll select under our, oops, not under assets, but under our resources, our muzzle flash that we have here. We'll select that entirety of that. We'll hit import image sequence. Plug this directly into our surface, and just keep saving that to make sure that we're not going to crash our computer. I'm going to go to our material preview now, and then we'll do auto refresh and change the offset here. Start on 18, I think. Perfect. That's going to work a little bit better for us. Oh, whoops. Let's scale this on the Y inwards. Perfect. And just kind of like line this up. I'm going to take this dude, though. So this is our muzzle flash. And we're not going to put that under lighting for right now. But we do need to parent it to our prop. Specifically our... whichever one is controlling everything for us. This is going to be our black and white image that we have here. And again, it's just a JPEG, so it's just really a matte. So if we create ourselves a... I'm going to center my keyboard again here. We're done using the tablet for the next year. We're going to use an emission shader is really what we're going to want. And if we go ahead and view that, you can kind of see what it's doing already. We just go back over into our render view. You can see that the entire plane is just a white object. For us, we kind of want to match our reference photo, which is going to have kind of more of a purplish tint to it. The strength is going to be so much that this is going to feel white, but the outer fringe of everything is going to have kind of like this magenta feel to everything. We can use our muzzle flash, of course, to create more of that fringing effect ourselves and create some dynamicness to everything. We could also directly do that just by changing this. This is just a straight black and white image, and maybe we want a little bit of a fall off to everything. So maybe after the roto paint that we have, we could use something like an edge blur or maybe just a regular blur node. And if we do this, then what's creating a kind of like fringe effect where it's not pure white all the way to the edge. It's creating a little bit of a fall off to it. And actually, I might do that. So let's go ahead and just render this back out again. Just 7 frames long. We take that over into our image sequence here. And if we view that, it's already got everything updated. But if you need to update it, you can always refresh the data by just going back into your image and then refreshing everything. So with that being said, we know that we kind of like the brightness value of a 23 here. Maybe we can adjust that later. But let's go ahead and use a math node inside of our comp and then take the color value here, and then we're just going to multiply this value by that 23. If we use that inside of our strength, it's only going to be creating that emissive shader, specifically where that muzzle flash is kind of existing right now. And then the only other thing that's kind of missing now is a transparent BSDF node. We need to remove everywhere that is not emissive. And that we're just going to be using a mix shader node. Just plug that directly into here. Our transparent BSDF is going to be on the bottom of this mix shader node. And then we're just going to take the color value that we currently have and just plug that into the FAC. Actually, it looks like I've got that backwards. So boom, boom. And then now you're going to have your muzzle flashes everywhere that is there. And all we have to do is just increase the multiplication here to make this brighter. And then that way it makes that a little bit more white. And then the fall off is still going to kind of have that magenta feel, as well as lighting up the entirety of your scene. And what you kind of want to make sure of is that every time we don't have any frames, that it is completely black. Because right now it's doing like a hold frame. Maybe we do actually need to make the image sequence inside of Nuke the entirety, which we can easily do. It's probably going to be the easiest thing to do, by the way. 1 through 25 is all we need. So we'll just change our frame range here from 1 to 25. And then we will do a time offset also with inside of our Nuke comp, and then just do 18. So that way, inside of our Nuke comp, the first frame that we see of it exploding is going to be frame 18. It looks like this needs to be 17. Cool. And then we will go ahead and just re-render that out. Cool. So now it's just a few muzzle flash frames. All of our mistakes, though, are kind of really coming out now on that. And so maybe we want to go back and adjust some of that. Let's render that out. Let's go and delete that, open up the image sequence again. And then this time we're just going to reload everything. So all the way from the beginning, open image. I don't know, that looks pretty nice. Having those extra little dots now rather than it feeling so... That could work pretty nicely for us. And then once we add that bloom into the actual comp, that's going to play, I think, quite a bit nicer. Let's also add in some additional lighting, and then we can get in some paint work now. And then let's see. With our color of this, let's just select our general purple that we have here. And then we can make this quite a bit dimmer. It doesn't have to be so excessive. Might even make this even more yellow. Maybe not. Let's set that to the purple. I want to grab our light, just move it off a little bit further away. I just want the shadows to be a little deeper, so let's just make it a little more sidey for us. And then kind of increase our milliwatts here. Just step it up a little bit. Let's try comping these guys in as well. I'm going to download this surface electrical arcs. We'll just do 2K. It's totally fine. So, let's go ahead and just duplicate our plane. I'm going to scale this other plane that we're creating here up. I'm going to remove the material on it and then create a new material that's going to be electricity. And under our shader editor, we can go ahead and just remove our principled BSDF and import an image texture. And this image texture, again, is probably just going to be located under our resources. And we'll just go ahead and grab surface electricity. Let's do with the glow. And if we go ahead and view it, we can see where everything is kind of going there. Mostly just trying to position this in front of everything. And this is just free extra detail that we're going to add. So we'll do mix shader. If we go ahead and view this, let's see, does it have an alpha channel? No, it doesn't. So we're going to use this guy as our alpha channel. So I'm going to actually just change this to hue and saturation. If we just desaturate this image completely, this will make a black and white image that we're going to use as our alpha layer. So mix shader, transparent BSDF, and then everywhere that is white, we're going to be using an emission surface. And then everywhere that isn't white, which that goes on the bottom, it's going to make not translucent, but transparent BSDF. That gets plugged into the top of that. So emission on the bottom, transparent on the top, and that's all coming from this black and white image that we're generating. And there you go. And again, we're just going to select our purple lightning effect is what we want for our emission, not our transparent. And then now if we could scale that up, now we've got this extra little lightning kind of coming from our muzzle flash effect that we were working on. Maybe not having any lightning here would be ideal. And then probably doing another mix shader. This is how we can animate it. Do another mix shader here. Transparent BSDF on the bottom. And then this is going to set how much it's visible. So we're going to set a keyframe on frame 18 of it completely visible. And then here we will set the keyframe of it being completely not visible. And we will make sure that's a keyframe as well. So boom, you've got your lightning effect happening as well. And we can always mix more stuff on here if we want to in the future. Set them to like 0.01 for the electricity amount. They don't need to be like super bright. They're just kind of like that extra little like lightning effect that we have there. We can always increase that like slightly, but I don't want it to be as bright as the other muzzle flash. It's not supposed to be lighting up the scene. Whereas this, however, is supposed to light up the scene. Do that, add. Another easy thing to do with atmosphere that I just love is adding in a tiny little bit of a like some kind of like fog effect. So if you just add a cube in, and then inside of this cube, let's go ahead and place this. Let's just first of all call it fog, and then I'm going to create a new material for it called fog. And let's see, let's do vertical split here so I can just access this a little bit easier. We will create a let's see. a volume scatter node, plug this into volume, and then change the density of this to be quite a bit less, but the anisotropy we want to increase. This is going to give us more of those light ray effects that we want inside of our scene. And obviously, the more we increase the density of this, the harder it is going to be for us to see our actor. And because of that, we actually probably want to have some moonlight in there. So let's create another area light off to the back here. And then this is going to be a little bit more blue in contrast to the rest of our scene. I think that we could probably get some of the, you know what, screw it. Let's do some base textures. We're not going to end the stream yet. I'm going to set the viewport display of this cube to be wireframe, so that way we can actually just see our actor. Set that all to wireframe. I don't want to have to see you in my viewport as I'm selecting my actor. Let's go ahead and save everything as we're moving along here. We already have some materials created for this, so we can just get started on a lot of this. For instance, our character skin color for our model of Jinx. I think using reference images is really important when doing this. So that way we kind of know what our character is going to look like. Whether it be concept art or what it is, it's really helpful to use reference images to know where we're trying to go. Otherwise, you're just shooting in the dark. So here's the thing with Arcane. Arcane has this hand-painted feel to it. And in Blender, everything is very 3D. So you're getting shadows, you're getting all of that stuff on top of your actual work. So in order for us to be able to get that, there's a few things that we could do. We could use the Toon BSDF inside of Blender, and that gives you a more of a kind of like toon effect. It's in the name, obviously. It'll give us more of a toon effect of the harder shadows of how everything is going to look. And then, of course, you've got your color. We could just use a texture that we're plugging directly into this. In our case, I'm just going to use an RGB for right now. And let's just find her color of her skin. So let's see, plug that into it. And of course, we can, inside of our reference of our image here, we can see how her skin is kind of reacting in this particular case. You're almost like trying to counter the magenta. I think we shouldn't try countering the magenta. We should try lighting her a little bit better. And then if we take our area light that we have that is creating this frontal light, if we hit it less magenta and we hit it more yellow, like we have in our reference image, might get a little bit closer to what we want. Let's add another area light in. Let's see. And then this area light is going to wash everything out a little bit more, but then more importantly, probably just give it a slight tinge of yellow. Nice. And that's going to give us those deeper shadows on the inside of her arm here to match. I also think that our size of it, let's see, we probably want the spread to be a little harsher. There's our shirt. Let's just make that a little darker. Let's see if that comes through. Yeah, it does. Skin, gloves, we'll just darken those as well for right now. Let's save that. Okay, great. So now we have our skin material that is kind of doing everything. Her pants are not panting for me. Let's make sure that her pants have their own thing. I am applying general parameters right now of the different clothes and stuff like that, which then we will do our own painted kind of like effect of where everything is. And then on top of all of that, we will use their painted stroke style. We need our eyes. Our eyes have no materials on them. I was kind of thinking about going more with these kind of like neon eyes. Pupil, let's assign all of that. And then this pupil here, let's just make it black real quick so we can see what we're doing. For right now, let's just select everything in the center here and then assign that to the pupil. Next up, if we selected our character and we select our skin shader, and we could also use a multiplication node. So like, for instance, if we grabbed Toon, for instance, this will generate a black and white kind of image of all of the shadows in our area, as well as all the non-shadowed areas. and we can change the size in which all of that is kind of happening. Now this is using a shader, but we could break this down with some different nodes within inside of our system. We can hand paint those so that way the shadows are dynamic compared to the actual lighting that we have within inside of our scene. There's a number of things that we can do for that. We're going to kind of select more of a color of her skin. She has kind of like this light, you know, almost Jokerish like type of skin. And right off the bat, that's going to give us kind of like that base level of skin that we want to have. I might make one thing you'll notice, at least on this, is that she is getting kind of like that pink or yellowish pink glow from the rest of the environment. So we might want to try to match that as well. And we can do that by, let's see, we have this light here, which is just a white light. So let's just half that maybe. And then kind of like this other light that's blasting on her is more yellowish. Perfect. And then that's going to give us kind of like those shadows on the ground that we want. And then we can always paint in areas in which we do want her to be brighter. For instance, I want it to be more clippy, kind of like on the front of her hand here and the rest of that part of the body. So we may just go ahead and select our character here. And then let's add in an image texture. And we will create a new image texture that I'll use this as a light matte. Maybe not 4096. I've had problems with live streaming and trying to do large texture paints at the same time. So let's just make it a smaller one. But you'll notice if I select this now, we're seeing kind of this black image that we just created for her. And it's just our matte. And if we go over to our texture paint window, we can actually now hand paint directly on this, our character. And then if we're trying to paint this with white, let's see, missing UV's detail. Let's go into edit mode real quick. Select everything, and then we will unwrap it all. Wow. This is the first time I'm trying to unwrap anything inside of the new version of Blender. This is version 4.3, by the way, inside of Blender. I haven't researched at all how to do this. So there's the hand painted method, which we can drop to. There's the shading method, which I'm about to show you. And then there's the brush strokes method, which we just tested. But I wanted to see if, can we do brush strokes? Let's try brush strokes, black and white texture. Oh, that's nice. I like this. Let's save this image. I'm going to open up Photoshop and then select that whole section there and generate that. I don't really like how dark that gets either. Mostly trying to maintain this. Let's see what that looks like. Let's take this whole thing and then we just merge these layers together. And if we use the heal brush, I think there's a way we could do it this way. Hand painted on a base color or normal? On probably the... Oh, you know what? Normals actually might not be a bad way of doing that. Convert image to normal. Normal maps. There might be a way of doing this. Let's try it. Let's do brush strokes and oil painting. And then with this, let's see, I don't even know what this is. Let's find our image. Oops, that's not even the correct one. Though honestly, yeah, it looks pretty sweet. Let's just download the normal map. Save that. Go back over to our Blender project. Select our dude, skin material. And I like this idea of using a normal map, so we will load in our image texture now from our downloads page. And that should look like that. And that's using UV, but I'm wondering if we can swap this to like something that actually works. And then if I use the value node, plug that into the scale, and okay. Then this gets plugged directly into our normals. But we're going to need to take this image texture here and then do a normal map. Plug that into the normals. That gets plugged into there. And then if we change our strength here to something smaller, I think just because we didn't actually UV unwrap this correct is what we're going to run into problems with. Let me select her face here. Can we just do one thing at a time? Maybe that works better. Okay. And then the rest of her body. That works nice. You know what? Another thing we could do is, let's load. Oh, why didn't I think of this to begin with? Take the normal map and let's do image adjustments. Let's do offset. That's right. And then let's vertically offset this thing like so. So that way it puts the line right there. And if we select kind of just this center section here and just do generative fill, we're going to create a seamless texture. So we're doing side to side seamless first, merge that together, merge layers. And then let's go back over here to filter and other, and then offset. And this time we are not going to do horizontal. We are only going to do vertical. So let's vertically adjust this thing. And now you see that line that's going all the way through. We're just going to select it. All right. And so then that's going to create ourselves a seamless texture. So now we have left to right seamless, and then we have up and down seamless. So now with that being said, we'll go ahead and export this image. And if we go over into our window here, I'm going to find ourselves normal map 2 that we already created. And that will create ourselves a seamless texture. So if we change the value of this guy to like a higher number inside of our scale, then that should at least create more of a seamless material throughout. Now, I wasn't planning on using normals. One of the problems that I have currently is that the color space, you want to make this non-color. Oh my god. Let's go. So we make that non-color. I guess, because I didn't set up color management inside of this new version of Blender. What? I didn't set up new color management and it still has ACES CG as an option? Did they add that into the official Blender release? That makes my life 1,000 times easier. So that gets plugged here into our normal map, which then goes into normal. Okay, so here's the cool thing. Our face actually works a little bit better. Let's change that to a 0.1. You'll notice that we're getting that kind of like brush strokes effect without us having to do a full-blown curves thing. Might not want to use Eevee though, but let's start working this out. And if we like it in Eevee, then cool, we'll stick in Eevee. But I'm probably going to swap over to Cycles at some point. Let's go to our assets and then our character of Jinx and find our mats of our light mat. And this is what we created earlier, which by the way should be using our UV, which now is not. That's right. We had a different UV unwrap before. Oh, Jesus. We're going to have to do all that paint work again. Oh, no. That's unfortunate. It's not that bad, but it's still annoying. Okay. Should have probably saved the previous UV before we started screwing with it, but now that's everywhere. Let's go over to our texture paint. I'm going to actually save as our project file and then put it today's date. So 12/22 version 1. That way, whenever I upload this, it will be the latest. I'm going to just, with everything here, we'll change our strength to 100%. And then with the paintbrush selected, making it black, I'm just kind of painting over everything. I'll change the strength to 100%, and that way we're just starting from scratch. I'm going to change our brush stroke size here. And now I'm going to kind of go in and start redoing some of our paint work that we had before. Trying to get, you know, some of like that jawline in there. I might actually change the strength of this to be a little bit smaller. And then we're trying to really recreate mostly like the brightness of this around her face. I might even, let's do this. I have these texture masks, which by the way, you guys can grab these on the Patreon project files. Let's do this. New image. We're going to need 2 different images. Let's call this face light mask. And that's the one we're going to be doing right now. So we'll change this over, change this material here. We're going to be using the skin material. Let's go back to layout. And then swap this to face light mask. And then I'm probably going to have to manually paint the areas in which the other skin is going to be at. But one thing I noticed is that this face right here, I'm using a different UV unwrap than everything else. I'm going to probably with our texture mask here, let's create a new texture. And if we go over to the texture window, I'm going to go ahead and find ourselves some surface imperfections. And we're going to create like let's see, what's the most brush strokey surface imperfections one I have? I've got like smudges here. I really love this smudges one. And then if we go back over to our tools, one thing to note is that's going to load in this texture. But then also under our texture, we want to remove it. So we're only selecting texture mask. And that's going to be the color of our paint. And then this right here will give us the ability to have like this nice kind of like fall off of everything on here. Okay, that can work really nicely for the face. So let's go ahead and save this. We'll hit image save. And let's see. Let's go back over here to our layout. We're actually going to have to separate these things. I just haven't done it yet. So this will be the rest of the body. And if we select the skin and we shift select the face, shift select the eyebrows, because actually those will be different colors anyways. Oh, it looks like all of that decided to be skin. It's fine. We'll duplicate this and call this body skin. And now if we go to the other skin, oh, whoops. Let's create a new material, call that skin. So now we have two skins. I'm actually going to move these up so they're right next to each other. And now if we just select the face and hit assign, our body skin will be a separate material than our regular skin. And our regular skin is using this face light mask. And if I go to our body skin, I can select the other one, the light matte, which I need to find more consistent naming conventions here, okay, guys? But yeah, so now that will be correct for that. But for our body now, we need to adjust this light mask that we created. So let's, with everything being selected, let's see, we've got our texture mask here. And I don't think we have any texture selected. No, we don't. Let's go to the paintbrush, remove our texture. Select black, just make it really big, and then change the strength here to a 1, and that way we're starting over from scratch. So for our texture mask, select the same texture as we had before, and perfect. I'm going to set that to a nice full white while changing the strength to be a little bit lower, so that way we can blend things a little bit easier. Alright, let's take this and hit the save button now, and then go back over to our layout. So this is our regular skin material that we have here. Let's use a mix shader. I don't want to use an emission shader, but I almost want to. So if that's plugged into the B input of mix shader, let's plug that into the principled at the top, and then of course our FAC. And now allow us to light those areas a little bit better. Swap this to an RGB with the same value, oh my gosh, our same value as our base texture. Plug that into the color here. I might even make this a little bit more red or something like that. Great. That is her body skin. I'll do probably the same thing over here. So mix shader. Just duplicate all of our settings. Copy, paste. And I don't know, let's see, let's take our color, let's do like a color ramp. And all we're going to do is make it so that the areas that are white are not completely white. So that way it's kind of like adding it over top of our other. Perfect. And then we'll swap this over to cycles and change the intensity value of this brush strokes to be like a 0.5 maybe. Much better. And now let's take our principled BSDF. I really don't like this emission, so let's try using this instead. I mean, we can always use the emission directly here. I don't like the idea unless we lessen that. What does our ambient occlusion look like? Because I think that's what we're missing when it does brighten up, is the heavy shadows throughout. Okay, why is that? We'll do a color ramp and make this more contrasty. Let's see what the self collision is really getting us here. Beautiful. And then now we have This material here, let's use a mix color after this guy. And then everywhere that is white, we want to have this material. And we're going to be using this ambient as our FAC. So let's go ahead and move that up here. Let's go ahead and view that real quick. So that way we're keeping those shadows in while also painting on that effect that we had. Kind of keeping a lot of that detail throughout. Okay, great. And then this, now let's move this forward. And let's clean this up as well. So this mix color right now will then get plugged directly as a matte into our FAC of our mix shader up there. And if we go ahead and view that, we should be getting that effect a little bit better. So now let's go ahead and boost our emission that's getting blasted onto the face. And I might want to make this a little bit warmer. I want the shadows to be quite a bit darker. So we actually have this ambient occlusion that we're already using here. I might want to use this to actually make our shadows deeper. So let's go ahead and use this same ambient occlusion with the color ramp that we have. And let's take probably this top principled BSDF that we have up here. Let's move this ambient occlusion a little bit further back. I'm going to use that same matte into the FAC. And we have this base color up here. So let's create an RGB color that is using the exact same material that we currently have. And then I'm going to create probably a whole separate RGB, because that way we can control what the shadows look like. So if I make this like a really deep dark color like that, then and we go and view our ambient occlusion, we'll notice that everywhere that is white, we're going to want to have our original color that we had. So this as our body texture will go into the B input. And then everywhere that is dark, we kind of want to have this custom shadows material that we're making for that. So that'll go into the A input. So now if we go and view that mix node, you'll kind of see exactly what's happening there. This then can get plugged directly into our principled BSDF base color. And then that way we are really like dramatizing the amount of shadows that we're getting on our image. One important thing to do on top of that is maybe let's go ahead and duplicate this color ramp and have that plugged into the color values here. And then we want to make sure that the white is very white until it hits the shadow. Depending on how much angular effect we want on our face is really how much we're going to fade that into here. I think, but we want to make sure that the matte is for sure white in certain areas and it's not gray, because if it's gray then it's going to be mixing these two colors back together. So that plugs back over here into the factor coming out of this color ramp that we're doing. And then again, if we go look at that, you'll see that our shadows are in very specific areas that we want to have. Probably not as dark, but certainly darker than the rest. And if we go view our principled BSDF, we're going to get a lot of those shadows now being created here. Don't know if we want it quite as red. Let's change the hue of this. It might even go blue almost. More of like a purplish color. That can be darker. Make that a little less contrasty so that way we're getting a little bit more of a fade. Okay, let's see what the rest of the body looks like with this. So I'm gonna just copy everything that we just made for changes, and then we're going to paste that over onto our body. So let's go ahead and delete everything in here and then paste this. Very manual way of making our own shadows, our own shading inside of here. Instead of using the face light mask, we're going to want to swap this over to our light matte. We'll have the correct shadows on that. I might want our normals to not be as many, or as heavy. So let's just bring that back quite a bit. Let's start adding in some makeup, because that's actually going to be like the next effect that we really want to tackle. Might even do her eyebrows. Let's see, her eyebrows will be a different color. So let's add in this, we'll call this eyebrows. And might select the normals that we already have here. I really like these brushstroke normals that we created. So just duplicate that. Normal map, boom. Select, copy and paste. Okay, so we created a new material for eyebrows. Let's go ahead and paste that into here to the normals and then make this more of like a brown. Select our eyebrows real quick and assign those. Let's do smart UV unwrap for this. Okay, that's some nice normals. Let's go check that out now. Let's see. For this, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We'll just make the roughness a bit higher. Probably a little bit darker on the brown. Okay, let's do some makeup here. We've got to get her some dark eyelash eyes or whatever. So we'll go to the skin. This is called face skin. And we're going to go over here to the mix shaders because we're going to be blending all of this together. So let's create a new image texture over here. Call this makeup. I'm just going to remove that texture. All right, so we're going to be painting on some dark eyes here. Okay, guys. Let's go back over to our layout. And then using a principled BSDF, because that's probably going to be the easiest, and another mix shader. Move that to the FAC, and this can go here. The bottom can go here. Technically, that's already looking way better, but let's do this correctly. We're going to need way more makeup. I'm being too conservative. And I'm missing the teeth. Let's get the lips in next. Let's work on the lips. So I'm going to do another image texture here. Let's do new. We'll do lips. Sorry. Let's keep things consistent. Makeup underscore lips. We try to keep things as consistent as possible around here, but you know, like that only gets you so far. Okay. Let's duplicate this principled BSDF, mix shader, boom, boom, boom. Let's change this to like a red or something. I don't even know. And then plug this guy over here into the FAC. Perfect. And so now if we select him, save, go to texture paint, now we'll be able to see our changes as we're working on them, which is always very useful. I was thinking we can go with, I understand that our reference photo doesn't have that, but I do like some of these kind of like dark makeup effects. So I was thinking about doing that. So we could just move this entire function of the lipsticks over there. Let's use another image texture because I want this to be completely separate, but it's going to be the same effect as this. So let's just duplicate this, duplicate that, plug this into the bottom, take our image texture here, we'll hit new, and then we're going to call this makeup smeared face. New image, plug that directly into our FAC. And I want to kind of try to emulate that crying kind of like smeared effect on her face as much as possible. So let's go ahead and save that. Go over to our texture paint now. And we're going to use paint on some white of our texture mask. So let's grab that guy. And again, just using the Surface Imperfections pack that's also available over on the Patreon. Let's go back over to our layout option. Pull that back up. I really love that now. That works really nicely. Let's see, the hair is a little messy, but let's see. Let's grab the hair. What am I doing for the hair right now? Nothing, basically. Let's delete that. And then add in a Toon BSDF. And let's just see what a nice blue looks like. And right off the bat, that's not terrible. Let's add in like a wave texture. What we're trying to do is fake the hair strands, basically. So if you add like a bunch of these in, you'll get like a crap ton of lines inside the hair, which is going to be faking kind of like the generalness of adding a bunch of hairs, which we're just using a mesh. So just do that. And then I'm going to use like an RGB of this blue value here. And then we can add in a curves, RGB curves. And then we'll do like a mix color node here. This plugged into the B input, and then the A input is going to be the darker strands. So that gets plugged into that, and then your wave texture gets plugged into the factor. So if we go view that, you'll see our darker hair kind of a little bit darker of a shade to it. Plug that into our color, and then that's our Toon BSDF, which can always make these strands a little bit darker. Her skin shader is coming off as too smooth and not as angular as I think it could be. So if we go adjust kind of the ambient occlusion, which is where we're getting most of that, this is where the majority of our effect is coming in. Actually, it's actually the rest of the body that's probably the problem. So if I select the body, let's go to the body mask, and then we increase this slightly, make this more contrasty. The contrastier we make that, the less 3D it's going to feel. So the closer these two color ramp selections get, beautiful. Let's select her eye whites here, and then let's add a bit of an emission to them so that way they're not so dark. That works. Kind of lifts them up a bit. Let's see what ambient occlusion looks like on these guys. Let's see. Add in a color ramp, kind of creating a fake shadow on her eyes here. You see that kind of like going on. Let's use a mix shader. Plug this into the FAC. This can go into the bottom of it. But now if we go ahead and view this guy, we're going to only be lifting the areas in which are white. So let's see. Versus this. So we're lifting up her eyes so that way they're a bit brighter in the areas that we want them, and then we're still making them black in the areas that are more of in the shadow. I am noticing on this reference photo here that she has like a bit of a purple behind her, and we can try to do that a couple different ways. Let's use a normal, and then if we do texture coordinates, I'm going to try your thing. Vector math with it set to dot product, and then normal and a texture coordinate, which I have here. So this gets plugged into that value. Oh wait, you're right. Sorry. Take the normal, plug that into the vector. Take the texture coordinate, plug the normal into the vector. And then that should give you that. Beautiful. So now if we then rotate this, we can find that side of her. Perfect. Which we might want a little bit more backlit, like that. Now we're getting just kind of like that rim light that's happening there. Alright, and then we'll use a mix shader. I'll plug this into the top, and then we're going to want into the bottom. Let's take a principled BSDF that we make, and we will give it that kind of like magenta purple effect. Plug that into the shader effect, and now we're going to kind of get like that purplish tint on the other side. I may then take a color ramp, just boost the saturation a little bit on that. I'm just trying to get my reference images so I can be like looking at them. I do want to give her like those purple eyes. Let's do that. So we have these eye pupils here. Let's change this to an emission shader. Now she's Herobrine, guys. That's a thing. You can use objects. Just go in here, and then if you do friggin' empties, plain axis empties, and then inside of the actual eye, then if you use objects, and then you select the empty, and then don't you do it like with a like some kind of like vector math? What are you selecting? Oh, you said select length. Yeah. Okay. And I feel like then if you select a color ramp, you can do it this way. I think the only problem is I'll have to do it for both eyes, but do the, oh, not reflection. I want object. What am I doing here? Doing object. Great. Now I have to do both. Okay, great. Now we're going to have two pupils, all right? We're going to just duplicate the pupil, add a pupil. Ooh, let's use these materials, and then we're going to create a very complex thingy with her eyes. So the outside iris, we're kind of need to do that first. All right, so let's duplicate this and then make this more of like the dark blacky kind of like outside of the iris of the pupil. So we'll do that, and then we'll do a mix shader between the two of these. So everywhere that is white FAC, we will use this shader and then that shader. Now if we go ahead and view that, should probably do, let's do the left eye first. We'll do the right eye first anyways. So if this is selected as our, whoopsies, This gets plugged into the FAC, and then let's go ahead and view this real quick. So that's kind of like our overall eyeball. And then everywhere that we have white, which we're going to need to increase that edge, then we will get kind of like the darker rings around the outside of it. Let's do a gradient texture using the exact same mapping as before. I want to do diagonal vector mapping. There we go. Then you plug the vector into there. Then we should be able to rotate this, right? Kind of get the underside of the eyeball. We're just kind of like trying to get the bottom side of the eye. And then if we use a color ramp then... Okay, so that's like the bottom part of the eye. So we're trying to get like that isolated bottom part of the eye. Because in our texture photo, you'll notice that her eye kind of like has this highlight in the bottom section of it. Let's plug this here. And then this guy goes into the top one. And then I'm just going to make this a little bit lighter, maybe a little brighter too. I don't know. And then we'll use that into our FAC. And then now let's go view that real quick. I think we want the black outline to be over top of everything rather than... So all of this kind of needs to happen first, doesn't it? Let's move this here. We want this to be plugged directly into the top, so it's just going to be this color to that color. We got to work from back to front with these things. And then this guy, we will remove that there. This gets plugged into the FAC there. There we go. Now we've got the overall outline. So now she's kind of got that effect there. I will say we want it to be a little bit of a harder line. And so let's lift that up. So we'll just take this whole thing here, duplicate it, use the exact same vector coordinates as before. But this time we want to invert our selection, or like so. There we go. And then duplicate this guy over here. And again, all of this will be before the outline phase of it. So another mix shader, plug this into the FAC, and then this gets plugged into the bottom. And again, we can now add more contrast in, and that'll lift everything up like so. So now we've got more of a gradient between the bottom here and then the top. We've got this over here is creating kind of like that big outline on everything. I might duplicate this. Take another length. Let's go view this real quick. We want a smaller circle for where the actual pupil is going to be. And then real contrast. Okay. And then we take this guy and we invert it. And then we take this and duplicate that. This goes into the top. And then we have a black, which will be where the actual pupil is. And that right there, guys, is how you make yourself an eyeball. Now all we have to do also is parent this to our head. Let's get into doing some of this like kind of like dirtying up of the body over here. I also have to paint on some of the tattoos. So let's go ahead and select the body skin material. And might even copy some of the stuff that we're doing. So we have this makeup smeared effect. Let's just not duplicate it, copy it, go over to our body skin, and we're going to be doing the same workflow here. So we already have like the base of everything, and then we're going to be using mix shaders to kind of blend everything back on top. So drag this down, and we plug this mix shader into the top value there. And instead of using this makeup smeared effect, let's go and just delete that and hit new. We'll call this body makeup. And then we'll call this smear. Go ahead and hit new image. A couple other ones that we'll be doing is we'll actually be doing the makeup as well. That's going to actually happen before this smearing effect is happening. So with this selected, if we go over into our texture paint node, we can then create kind of like all of this dirt and grime that would be on the body. So let's do that here. Again, I'm using this texture mask. You guys can grab this over on my Patreon. You guys can use whatever you want really as a texture mask, and it's just rotating randomly. But I'm just going to use this to kind of do most of the heavy lifting here. I am thinking though a good amount of her shadows here. Let's select the body, and then with the body skin, let's adjust the shading from here into this one right here. Make that less smooth of a transition from the lights into the darks. And then we're going to have to paint in her tattoos, her wonderful tattoos. So let's go ahead and do that. So same thing as before. We're going to create another mix shader back here. We'll go ahead and just duplicate this setup. Although we're not going to be using the same thing. Probably set this to more of like a blue. And plug that into our bottom shader. And then this guy into our FAC. Delete this now. And then hit new tattoos. Cool. And then with that selected, let's go over to texture paint. I gotta figure out, so I've got like a couple photos of her tattoos, but like, do I just have creative freedom here to do whatever I want with this, or should I actually match our reference? Probably should match the reference, right? Okay, great. So that's her tattoos. Spent all this time on her, although we will see that in the beginning of the shot. Okay, so our tattoos in our order of operations are going to happen before the rest of the smearing effects that are happening. So that's good. If we then go and turn our smoke on, we're going to remove quite a bit of the need for any of that. I think what we want is another light. And can we make this a little more yellow? Probably also want this one to not affect the atmosphere. So again, probably unchecking volume scatter on these types of lights. And let's go ahead and start doing some shading for this guy here. I gotta do some shading on this. So we'll create a new material. Probably go something like that, slightly metallic. The only other material she has is like these kind of like bronzy effects. So let's call this gun metal. And then we will create a new material called gun bronze. And probably increase the metallic of this. Slight coloring to it. And just select this bottom ring here. And then this, now we can have the roughness further down. And the specularity, let's make it catch the light a little bit more. Probably increase the metallicness of it and decrease the roughness. And yeah, we'll probably want that for the rest of everything else here. So we'll just select this front piece here. This is all supposed to be metallic. So select that whole front section, assign kind of like that bronze material, shade auto smooth, perfect. And then this whole thing, this is strange because it's like basically all that metallic bronze. So if we do gunmetal bronze, there's supposed to be like two. So if we duplicate this, we'll do gunmetal bronze red. And then we make this slightly more pinky red. Probably slightly more rough. And a little bit darker. And a little bit more rough. Okay, great. Let's do that. And then let's select another gunmetal or gun bronze. And we want probably this outside one. And then, let's see, we probably want this outside piece, which luckily these are just their own thing. Makes everything a lot easier to select. Then select this front piece. Probably making these guys gunmetal bronze as well. I don't know. Like these edge pieces. Like the fronts. And probably, more than likely, place a point light here on this front piece and then just blast it out so that way these feel more like the muzzle flash is happening at the same time. I think the gun in the show is gold, black, and magenta, but you might be misremembering. Gold, black, and magenta. Well, we can always look it up. Oh. So, on the back here. More like purple. Probably less saturated. Darker. And like this centerpiece here is black. And gold is more this color. Let's also select the normals that we're using here. Let's copy this. Go to our gun and then just use that because we're using that kind of like same painted effect is what we're going for here. So paste, and we'll use the same normals. Yeah, looks good, guys, right there. Go to the gun bronze, paste this as well. And then another thing we could definitely do is use the exact same texture. So let's go to our downloads page right now, and then inside of Photoshop, let's grab this guy, drag him in. We're going to create our own separate texture. Probably not this one. That's fine. We'll go and do this here. So inside of our Photoshop, let's use an offset. And if we offset this thing vertically first, just go ahead and select this, generate fill. And then we're going to basically try to create a seamless texture just like we did before, but this time using this black and white photo. Perfect. Merge these together, merge layers. And then we'll go to filter, other, and then use the offset. But this time, go like 500 here. And go ahead and just select this. Probably do more. And then now everything should be seamless in all directions. Let's go ahead and save this now. Export PNG. Now, actually, it's not going to be on our character. It's actually going to be on the gun. But let's go ahead and just create a new texture here. We'll find our assets that we just created. Probably should have gone under prop, but I didn't do that. Use displacement paint effect. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Select our gunmetal texture that we have here. Let's do resources or assets, character. Okay, so that almost works. Let's go ahead and add in ourselves some mapping here and then change the scale value of this to like a 3 or more. Okay, so the rotation, let's just rotate, scale it slightly down. Then we're going to use this as let's use a displacement and then plug this into the height. So now that should give us displacement height of this painted effect. Probably want to adjust. Let's use a color ramp and really lessen it just so that way we're only getting kind of like this painted lines effect. Then that gets plugged into the height, which then should give us better displacement. We'll plug that over here into our displacement. And then now we're getting more of this kind of like hand painted effect onto the gun. Let's add in an image texture to this ground. So we're going to do a few things. I think if we select the, what did I call it? Paint effect? Yeah. We're going to place that here on the ground. Let's change the scaling of this guy. Not that big. And then we're going to use this to compound against this principled BSDF. So we'll do a few things. First of all, we're going to use this inside of our roughness. So now if we go view that, certain areas are rough, certain areas are not. Probably want to change the color ramp of that. So that way everything is quite a bit more rough. Next thing we're going to want to do is use probably like an RGB with the exact same value that we're currently trying to go for, which is like this more reddish color. Or not red, but prune color. We'll do a mixed color so that way this is going to blend between that and another value. And what we're trying to do is create some variation into our ground. So if we plug that in and then we use ourselves a color ramp, we can adjust the factor of how much we're actually showing here. Whoops. This gets plugged into the A. This gets plugged into the factor value is what I'm really trying to do. And then this gets plugged into the FAC. I don't know why I got that all confused there. And then I'm going to use a color ramp or a curve, RGB curves node to take whatever color that we want to be plugged in, darken it slightly, and then plug that into the mix. That way this is a little more responsive to what we're going for. And I'm just change the saturation slightly here. And that way we're getting kind of like this ground painted effect here. Now that's all plugged into the mix, which is now going to get plugged into the base color. And then this principled BSDF can be used. So that way our lights and shadows are being used, but we're still getting kind of like that painted effect on everything. We can go view that from a different angle and you'll see that looks really nice. It looks, you know, like someone hand painted it. And we may want to use the exact same material here. So let's call this ground. And then I'm going to select ground for that piece, but I'm actually going to duplicate this and call this wood. And all we have to do inside of our wood material is change the saturation value of this, and also make it more brown. So, and then the ground, this back here, let's select our wood material, and we're going to call this fence. And now we can just adjust all of this. So this is going to be a little bit more silhouetted. We don't have to do very much work. We're just kind of going back and forth. Select fence for the rest of this guy. And so that way everything else kind of lines up. Inside of our reference photo, there is like a tiny little bit of an outline peeking through of the, Piltover or whatever it is that's back there. And honestly, for something like this, you would usually have a matte painting. There's not really a reason to create a whole 3D world back there. So let's try creating something of our own. Let's go search Piltover and let's find a nice cool picture. I think I like this. So let's go ahead and take this, save it, and let's go into our Photoshop. We're going to create ourselves a nice matte painting. So open that up. And we're going to quickly just select this guy. And then we'll we'll invert the selection, remove the background. And now we've got like this nice card here. I think if we take this whole thing and we'll keep the height where it's at, so 100%. But then the width, let's just set that to a negative 100%. Can I actually scale it? And then the width, set this to a negative 100. Can I do that easily? Thank you. I guess I selected the matte and did that to the matte. Basically want to create a building here. I'm going to select this whole section and then we'll just do generative fill. Let's just see what happens. I don't know. We're going to take one of the matte painting buildings that they already have and then try to extend it outwards. It does a sloppy job, but not necessarily a bad job. Let's go ahead and export this image now as a PNG. I'll save this over into assets. Okay, wait. So import image, mesh plane, create a mesh planes from image files. Is that the thing? They just changed the name of it to mesh. Well, it looks like that was the answer. Place that back there. We've got ourselves a nice digital matte painting. We can then scale up accordingly. Okay, great. Well, that works for me, like so. I think the only question I have is how visible everything is going to be. So let's just turn that on. And then with this, let's merge visible. And then let's just do remove background. See how well that works. Let's do a quick selection. Let's see. And I am doing quick selection, by the way. We are going to quick select this guy out of here. Okay, great. And then we'll do export PNG. I'm going to overwrite that. You're supposed to like barely be able to tell it's there. I might even this will be a little trick, all right? Between us, okay? We'll do so we're going to use a mix shader, and then that way we can actually control how much we're actually seeing this thing. So probably swap this down to here. That way it's still a little visible. And it's probably because of the natural shadows that are coming in. I'm just not pleased. We're going to do, let's change this to a tune. The same normals. This gets plugged into base color. This gets plugged into normals. And then this gets plugged over here into the regular shader. But if we go view this real quick, I'm just not happy with how 3D everything is looking. So we're going to make some adjustments. That's a lot better. Yeah, I think we have to use tune instead of principled BSDF just because this is just handing off too much. If we go and do the pants, let's select the pants real quick. Swap this to and then let's see, we'll make her pants the correct color. Change the size. But yeah, I was going to do a wave texture. Let's see what that even looks like right off the bat. And then let's see, we'll do a few different things. First of all, let's grab a color ramp and then just make this very clearly the lines that we want. Just make these a little thicker. We could probably fix this. It just would require me to actually UV unwrap this thing. Yeah, so let's just do this, and then we'll do UV, project from view. And then if we use UVs, and then we swap this to an X. Okay, that's perfect. Let's set the distortion to 0. Let's do a couple different things though. So we're going to want another one here. Set this to black. Set that to black, and then we just make that really close. And doesn't this just create like an outline for us? Yes, it does. It does make an outline. Okay, so we've got this kind of like overall difference between this. Let's use a mix shader, okay? And for everywhere that's white, just plug both these guys in. I don't know why I've done that twice now. Okay. Plug that into the FAC. Now I've got these two values here. And everywhere that's white, we're going to want it to be darker. So let's just make this one darker. Okay. So now we've got our lines of our darker pants. And then we're going to want kind of like gold outline of everything. So we'll just duplicate this. Let's get a nice goldy color. Do another mix shader. I don't know why this is all so far up there. But this guy will go into the FAC of that, and then everywhere that's white, we'll put that. So now we've got these outlines around everything, which is perfect. I don't know why I'm using separate tune shaders. I should just be using these as mix colors. That's probably what I should be doing here. One second. RGB value. Okay, great. So there's our dark outlines that we want to have there. Use another mix that's on the A. Using this FAC here, we'll just go and delete all of that. And then this goes into the gold value of that guy. And now if we go view that, we should be creating like a gold line there. Perfect. All we have to do, honestly, is swap these to linear. And then we plug all of this into a tune. Not the size, but the color. And then we view that. And then you've got yourself some pants. Still think the mouth doesn't work because her teeth aren't in it, and I think that's problematic. We gotta fix that. That's a must. All right, let's do this. We're going to select the teeth in here. Let's just hide these guys, and we're gonna just make them their own thing. Okay. Okay. So this top tooth, I think, needs to be its own thing. And you, sir, Alt-P, clear parent, and keep transform. Grab, move up. So we'll select this bone. We'll call this upper mouth. Where is your constraints coming in, buddy? Ah, we'll do that. Oh, whoops. Let's not do that. Let's apply these. Can I apply you? Why can't I apply you? You're a shape key? Objects, data, shape key, apply. Apply all your shape keys. Apply your armature. Then we go back over to our constraints and we'll select child off. And we'll do set inverse. So now, if I grab this, her teeth move. Perfect. Cool. For our boot color, let's just do that one real quick. Since I haven't done that yet. Let's go ahead and change the boots here to a tune. Just for like a quick thingy. Probably make the size of that pretty dang small. And roughly the same shader color. This is a throwaway, honestly, because we're not doing too much with it. The gloves, probably use another wave. Whoa, not wavelength. Never wavelength. Never wavelength. Do you hear me? Let's do that. And tune. We can use this for two different colors, so we'll just use an RGB of something a little like that. And probably something a little bit more red and higher up. And we'll do a mix color with this plugged into the factor. Great. For this, though, let's use a color ramp and just make the lines quite a bit smaller. Perfect. And then that can just go into the factor, and we're good. Let's just focus on this section over here. I want to make this, just like this. Look at this beautiful topology, guys. Something like that. Okay. I will create a new material, new tune, and probably just make this like a really quick material. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I just want it to feel more grounded. Let's set that to like a 20 millimeter or something like that. Yeah. I like that. We're just recomposing this shot. Don't mind me. We're just redoing the whole thing. Let's take this and duplicate it. They're slightly transparent, so if you layer them, you can actually get different depths to different parts of it. Her smudge makeup on her face makes her look too Joker. That's just my opinion. So let's tone that back. I'm going to render out the sequence. I'm going to render out the sequence off stream. But then right now, I'm going to actually just render out a single frame, and then we can comp this, because I don't want to do a whole other live stream just to composite. We will not have motion blur turned on, although you could. You know what? Screw it. Let's turn motion blur on. Under color management, we're going to set the sequencer to Aces CG. And then for our render here, let's output this as OpenEXR multi-layer, and overwrite's totally cool. We will probably be outputting this to our stream directory, and we're just gonna do this frame. So I'm gonna set my sampling settings. We'll probably just keep default on there, which is I think 4096, although I actually haven't really gone through this to see what really is. And then the color management over here will override it just to make sure that it's being set to Aces CG. I'm going to set the render here, crypto mats. We'll do objects and materials, not assets. All right, now inside of Nuke, I'm going to set this up to 2 screen, and then we'll load in our temp shot that we have. Because this is a multi-layer EXR, we're going to use a shuffle node, and then swap the combined into our main. Because I gotta get my color management set up on this new version of Blender, but I'm gonna just boost the exposure here a little bit. And then let's see, we want some lens dirt, so maybe we go grab some lens dirt. Sometimes what I like to do is grab a keyer of the brightest areas of your image, and if we go to the alpha here, we just blur this, use another merge node down here, and then we just set we use a stencil, but we can invert this. Perfect. And then over on this merge node, we then use a stencil, and so that way we are only actually seeing the lens dirt, but where the alpha is. Okay. Then we merge that back over top of our merge. So now we're getting that stuff to appear. And then we'll use a gradient of the gain being set to that. Let's go ahead and drop in a lens distortion, though I think we want to do that here. And then we're going to redistort everything back this direction. The fact that this doesn't look like what I created inside of Blender is really bothering me. Especially since color is such an important part of these renders. Okay, that looks pretty nice. Let's use a crypto mat now and select the ground. Probably after that, then bring down. I swear you can really just make things look like whatever you guys want inside the comp. I'll tell you that. Like adding detail in of the leg there, that works pretty nice. This is all of the leg details that we're bringing back in, kind of just like texturing that to work a little bit better. Another crypto mat, get this face color to look a little bit closer to what we want. Another crypto mat, just kind of generally getting this to work. Actually like the regrain node now a lot better than the regular grain node. Hasselhoff got me hooked on that. I always like to do this. I think that it like works really well. But if you do like change the tolerance here, and then if we change like the brightness and then the saturation of this stuff, you can merge this back over top of your original shot. This just adds a little bit of extra pizzazz that, you know, then of course we can mix this at a lower rate, but, you know, like mix this back at like 0.5. And then with our glow, let's also just make sure, we'll set that to like a 20. And then we'll do the same thing again, but this time let's set the tolerance to something like a 0.5. This can be like a 0.75 instead. And then we'll make the size really small, like a 5. Again, do effect only, because we'll just use back over top of everything. So if we do an over with another screen, just kind of adding kind of like that inner glow around certain parts. I like to then blur everything like 500. And then if we merge that back over top of our image, just use another screen, but this one we're going to make really small. And then this one right here, we'll probably keep this at, yeah, that's fine. Some other stuff. Let's go into grade. Let's use another crypto mat now. And if we then select our fence that we have back here, love to just like darken this stuff, you know, just there's no reason to see it. And then if we just do like a grade node here at the bottom, sometimes I like to then create like a nice vignette of our image. Something like this might do. And then we'll do an RGBA with a blur, probably set this to like 300 pixel size. But now we can darken the invert of this actually. Let's figure out a better way of doing that. I basically need to make the background cooler without making this cooler. So I'll probably just add in a roto here of the area in which this is creating this bloom effect to happen. I'm not going to pre-multiply that. And then we actually use a merge node, I think. And then, let's see, let's invert that. Let's use a blur node here and then just blur it like to Kingdom Come. Perfect. Wait a second. Okay, so we want the Luma. We want to merge this. And we want to use that to subtract. And then we blur that. There we go. So then this gives us this, which is that. And we scale this up. Great. And now just make that all a lot deeper. Gotcha. Let's invert that. Perfect. Okay, so then that's going to bring everything down, which gives it that nice like blue shadows effect that we want. Okay. And then let's see. We had this, which we did bring in. Kind of want to use it. Let's see. We're going to reformat. Then we'll merge this. Yeah. And then we'll do as a screen or something like that. We can just copy paste our stuff that we're doing. Probably use the scaling of this set to like a 0.6 or a 0.7. And then here we'll use another merge node, and we only want this to be in around this section over here. So we'll do, so if we just select all of that and then we hit RGBA, we can then go ahead and blur this and set that to a little bit higher so that way it fades out. And then we'll just go ahead and scale this down, but it's mostly supposed to be only available or visible where the gun is shooting. Let's fix the boots. We'll make a leather material. I think that's a little better for the boots. I'll post these project files, obviously, up onto the Patreon immediately after this stream is over. Anyways, you guys have a good one. Thank you so much for joining again, and I will see you guys in the next stream. Peace out.